Welcome to NDTR Spotlight, a show where we highlight former and current NDTRs. And NDTR, if you don't know, stands for Nutritionist, Diet Technician Registered. They also go by the credential DTR, which stands for Diet Technician Registered. In order to become an NDTR, you have to graduate from an accredited program, take an exam, and participate in continual education. Welcome to NDTR Spotlight. I'm your host, Marie Lorraine. Today we have a very educated woman on our show. She has a bachelor's of arts in English, a bachelor's of fine arts in communications, a master's degree in science and kinesiology, and a bachelor of science in nutrition and dietetics. So if you're counting, that's 3 bachelor's and 1 master's degree. She also has a diet technician registered credential. She has past certifications as an ACE fitness instructor and a Cooper Aerobics Center fitness instructor. And with all of that knowledge, she shares it on her blog, Food Hall by Jani, which has science-based evidence nutrition information on her blog. And it's so detailed. Her articles are very informative. Her blog posts are very informative. And she doesn't just write, eat your fruits and vegetables. She tells you why. She does not dumb it down to the point where you're insulted. So definitely a blog to check out. So this is an interview to watch if you are a non-traditional student, as she has a lot of degrees and degrees don't happen overnight. She got her bachelor's of science in nutrition and dietetics in her 50s. So if you're a non-traditional student, this is an interview to watch. Also, if you are interested in writing about nutrition or doing a nutrition blog, this is also an interview to watch. And lastly, we will be touching on some really interesting diversity topics later in the end of this interview. So definitely stay tuned for all of that. Jani, thank you so much for being here.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, of course. I'm honored to be able to talk with you today. So let's start with the normal question. How did you, or why did you become a diet technician registered?
I really wanted to go beyond the just getting the degree. I really felt it demonstrated a commitment to nutrition and an ongoing commitment with the CEUs that are required, the 50 CEUs for 5 years. Also, I felt it would keep me current on the nutritional science and issues in nutrition. And I know because of being older that you can fall behind and miss things if you don't if you don't try to stay on top of current. Plus, I love that being associated with the academy. I feel that helps to give the credential a little bit of weight in the eyes of the public and other people.
With all of your education that we kind of just went over, can you kind of tell us your path for all those degrees that you got and what led you to each of those and now how you ended up as a DTR?
Sure. Yeah, I really enjoy, have always enjoyed words and reading and writing, and have worked for newspapers in the past, and actually was a copy editor for a time as well as a writer. And I actually really love editing. I really enjoy it. And I would say that I'm a much better editor than writer. But so that started out with my love of words, but I also love fitness. And I have always, for some reason, since I've been very young, ended up helping people with fitness, whether that's with their running regime, which I used to run a lot when I was younger, and then with their personal goals for their health and their fitness. I love to design programs that would help them achieve those goals. And that led to having a personal training business and getting a degree, a master's degree in kinesiology, so I would more effectively understand how to program and what needed to be done, and also how to cater to people's different individual needs. That is what led me to that. And I have always believed in getting the education and the background necessary, not just I did know when I was in fitness there were, and you may see this too, Marie, quite a few people out there, and this was so long ago, I think things were a little bit different, but who did not have the background, who just maybe read a bodybuilding magazine and thought that they could know how to help people with their individual fitness needs. And I preferred to have a scientific background.
Yes, yeah, and that's so evident from just looking at your blog and how you write, and yeah, the information you have on there. So in relation to your master's in kinesiology and then your switch to the bachelor's, did you see like similarities in how you handle your clients with food and fitness?
Yeah, it's quite different in food. Really, what drove me to get the nutrition degree were more family issues. My husband developed out of the blue, after having a round of steroid treatment for a pinched nerve in his neck, he developed type 1 diabetes. And he went through the classic symptoms where he lost like 10 pounds in a week. He was in the bathroom all the time. And when we took him in, his blood sugar was about 700. And so that, of course, necessitated our changing a lot of things. And then my children have some pretty interesting food sensitivities and allergies. And I really needed to know more about that. I mean, at one point, my son was allergic to lentils. And he's allergic to tropical fruits and melons. Both my kids are allergic to bananas and avocados.
Wow, yeah, those are hard. Those are not common allergies at all.
No, it's really different. It's not like they have to be, it's not like they're celiac, or it's not like they have a peanut allergy. Although he is allergic to shellfish, which is one of the big
That's normal.
Yeah, that's more normal. Yeah.
That's still a hard one. Oh my goodness. So did learning everything in your program help you? Were you able to help your husband and your children with what you've learned with your degree?
Yeah, actually, it has helped me tremendously. And I know that I focus very much on whole foods now. And we eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. And my husband has recently, since COVID, and he's been eating all his meals at home, he has really reduced his insulin needs.
Wow.
So that I want to say they've come down by about a third, which is huge. Yeah.
That is huge. You don't usually hear that with type 1 diabetics. It's usually type 2.
It's funny. He developed it in midlife. He may have had a predisposition. We think he had a genetic predisposition. So I don't know if you'd call him type 1.5 or,
Okay.
But he's treated like type 1.
Yeah.
With insulin. Yeah.
So with all of your background in your education, then in your family life, does that help influence what you decide to write about on your blog?
Yeah, it's really varied what I decide to write about. Initially, when I started the blog, I was very interested in food safety, and I do feel like wholesomeness of the food supply is an issue in this country because of industrial food. And I know that the USDA does the best have, but depending on, the amount of resources that the federal government wants to devote to supporting their programs, they can be handicapped. Now, I think that things are getting better, and like the Food Safety and Inspection Service is definitely a favorite website for me, which is, I visit it often, and and I've even attended some of their virtual public meetings because I feel like Salmonella particularly and Listeria are present to a larger degree. And we only hear about the huge outbreaks like a few years ago, several years ago, the Bluebell outbreak with Listeria, the Bluebell ice cream. But there are new serotypes of Salmonella that are emerging all the time, particularly in chickens and eggs. And it's something that we need to be aware of, But that said, I have moved a little bit away from food safety. And I'm starting to implement the safe recipe guidelines.
Yeah. So I want to ask, I have not spoken to anyone who's brought up the conversation of food safety. Usually that's like in food service and people forget about it because they don't like that topic. So I really appreciate you bringing that up. And then this safety, you said, what is it called? Safety. You just said it.
It's the Partnership for Food Safety. Yeah.
Yes. And then safety food guidelines for your recipes.
Yes.
So can you, it sounds like it's self-explanatory, but can you explain what that is and how you're incorporating that and why it's relevant to recipes?
Well, I've just started doing it. I should have been doing it before. It's a little off-putting for chefs, I think, because, in food service, there are kitchen rules where you have to keep your hand, you keep everything very clean. But at home, we need to be following some of these guidelines too. I mean, of course, there's the salmonella in eggs, but how many people know about the E. coli in flour? I mean, people don't realize that flour, and there have been several outbreaks in the last few years of E. coli in flour. Now, if you wanted to toast your flour before you used it, it would be perfectly safe. And the guidelines for the recipes is that any step, it's kind of like HACCP. At any step in any point in the recipe where there might be an exposure to a pathogen, you need to do something preventative. Like if you're handling raw chicken, then it's important to say in the recipe, do not wash the chicken, or do not let the chicken touch any of the other foods, don't cross-contaminate, and say that in a way that it is very obvious to a consumer not to do that.
That's so helpful. I feel like just seeing that on a recipe will just like trigger those healthy habits when you're cooking.
Well, and it's not that you don't know. I mean, because a lot of people know, but just to see it in their recipe, it's just you're right. It's just a trigger to say, oh yes, I need to remember to do this or that, Yeah.
So it sounds like you are constantly working and improving on your blog, because this is something new you're adding. You've had the blog for a little over a year now, is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I started it October last year. Yeah.
So what's been the process of starting the blog and promoting it and writing for it? What's that been like for you?
The process has been a lot of learning. Initially I took a little online WordPress course to learn how to set up the blog. And I had never done that before. I'd never had a blog or an interest in an online presence before. But I thought, this is something I can do. And I ended up being really glad, especially when COVID came along, that I had done that. I mean, as I was finishing up the nutrition degree, I started writing again for a little newspaper at the school, just on some health topics for them. And I thought, I really like the writing. I want to continue with the writing. And I think there are nutrition things that people don't know. One of my most popular blogs that I have is one I did on sunflower seed butter versus peanut butter. And it's one that I get a lot of traffic for my blog. My blog the traffic could be larger for sure. But I think that's just something that resonates with people, because it deals with allergies, and it also deals with migraines. And then people are very curious about alternative, butters right now. And keto people are interested in peanut butter, sunflower seed butter, any nut butter, basically. Also, I am not great with social media, but I do have my Instagram, and I promote on my Instagram. I just recently put together a little what's called a lead magnet. It's a little stylistic cookbook of anti-inflammatory salad recipes.
Oh.
And it's real pretty. If you want to print it, it will print out double-sided in a, it'll look like a cookbook. I will put that link. I'll give you that link so you can put it in the resources if people want to download it.
Yeah. We'll put your whole blog on the resource page because it's super informative. I love it. So with that, so also on your blog, you have something called services where you do nutrition writing for
Yes,
companies
yes.
and stuff. What's that? Can you kind of talk a little bit about what that's like and how you got into that for nutrition
Yeah,
stuff?
I haven't been terribly successful with that, to be honest
Okay.
with you, but I haven't. That's because I'll tell you part of that is because I keep working on my blog versus pitching, um, versus going out to different places and putting myself out there in the marketplace and pitching different blogs and publications. Now, I did recently do an article for the newsletter for the Academy for their dietetics and healthcare communities. I recently did an article for that newsletter, and then I guest blogged recently on a friend of mine. She does diabetes content writing,
Mm-hmm.
and so we kind of guest blogged for each other. She did a wonderful article for me on Mediterranean spices, because there's such interest in the Mediterranean diet. I've also joined some Facebook groups, and through Facebook, through some of their foodie type groups,
Mm-hmm.
I try to kind of pitch the nutrition angle
Yeah.
and post to different blog posts I have, and raise awareness of my blog through there.
So you have a very interesting story in that you started the dietetic internship, but you decided not to continue on it for health purposes. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that if you're comfortable?
Yeah, I'm happy to share about that. I mean, I think it was, because I'm older, I thought, well, I have to go right into the internship and go ahead and get that RD. And, if I'm going to get the RD, I need to go and do it right away and not take any time after, which I think might have been a mistake after finishing my degree. I think that it might be better to wait a little bit for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
But the real problem for me was that, it's a pretty arduous process, that internship. And I had a commute that sometimes was 2 hours one way. And I should have, in retrospect, I should have probably moved to that. I should probably have not done the commute. I probably should have gotten an apartment or found some kind of living situation that was closer.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't, and my migraines got really bad. I developed migraine in midlife, and they got kind of out of control while I was going through the internship. And so where I would just have a migraine all the time. And so I would try to manage it with medications. And my migraines, I don't get aura, and they're not the kind where I get piercing pain in my head, but they do involve a lot of brain fog.
Oh.
And that made the internship more challenging,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
as you can imagine.
I honestly can't imagine, because you need to be, your brain is fried at the end of the internship day, so having brain fog during the day.
And I just decided that I had better, at my stage in life, it would be better if I did not complete the program. It'd be better for my health. It'd be better for my marriage. And I just decided not to continue on with it.
So that was my next question. Do you feel that the DTR credential is enough for what you want to do in the field of dietetics?
I do feel like that. I I know it's not the RD credential, and I know that probably I would be a little more marketable with the RD,
Mm-hmm.
but I do feel like for what I want to do, that the DTR gives me added heft, nutrition, cred, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very respectable credential. But the only problem with the DTR is I don't think, and I think I said this to you, I don't think people understand, unless they're an RD, what a DTR is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder sometimes if it'd be better to find a different name for that credential that would be more recognizable. And the other thing I'd like to see is for DTRs to be licensed. I think that's an added credential for the public that says this is really something. This is, I think if if a salon owner or a hairdresser needs to be licensed, I think a DTR should be licensed.
Oh, that's a very interesting, it's an interesting point to put out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did
'Cause
you?
it's a profession.
Yeah, it 100% is a profession. Just like, yeah. Do you appreciate the how they added the N to the DTR, so it's nutritionist, diet technician registered, or you think they needed more
No,
than
I
just
think
that?
that's good because then because I think without that, I think that the general public, for example,
Mhm.
doesn't know that it has anything to do with nutrition necessarily.
They think it's define the relationship DTI. You're like, no.
Yeah, whereas someone who does not even have a nutrition degree can say, I'm a nutritionist, and people immediately think they know a lot about nutrition.
So, in regards to this field of dietetics and DTR, what has been your experience with diversity, specifically to the field of dietetics?
Well, I think the diversity is getting so much better. And I see that like we had a Zoom call in the DHCC in the dietetics and healthcare communities, which is, offers, you're a member of that, aren't you,
Mhm.
Marie?
Yes.
Yeah, the DPG.
Yeah.
And I think on the Zoom call that we had in November, I saw a lot of diversity in the DTRs that were in the program and in Texas at the Tarrant County Junior College. And I thought, this is great. But in dietetics in general, and RDs, it's been kind of a field that's been dominated traditionally by Caucasian women.
Mhm.
And I don't think that's any surprise to anybody. But I see a lot more men now, and I know that I think the academy and everyone in dietetics is anxious to have more men in the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do see more people of color. The supervising RD from the dietetic internship that I was enrolled in, she was Black.
Oh, wow.
And she is Black, yeah, and she's really terrific. And I do see more of the Asian faces. I see, I don't see, at least I'm not aware, like I am, of people of different races in terms of gender diversity within the people who are gender nonconforming. I mean, I'm sure they are there, but they are not out there, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's important that there are those people within dietetics because in my limited experience in my internship when I was doing the medical part of in hospital, you get a lot of people that come in that are gender nonconforming. And I think they find they can relate better to someone who maybe isn't always a Caucasian woman, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's so relevant too, because food is so different, and so you need to talk to different people to really understand food. You can't just learn from one culture because you're going to be missing out on so much. And it's interesting that you brought up the gender part of it too, because the nutrition for that demographic is not very well first. And I know you were sharing a little bit about that with me. If you want to touch a little bit on that topic in the field of dietetics in relation to the transgender and the gender nutrition out there.
Well, I do feel like depending on if you're transgender and you are transitioning from female to male, for instance, your nutrition needs are going to change tremendously just from a physiologic standpoint because now you're taking all that testosterone, having all those androgens and building muscle, and you're going to need so many more quality calories and protein. I haven't researched, like I said, I'd like to do more research in this area, but men and women have different needs in terms of that has to do with their body composition. Their macros are different even. And then on the other hand, if you're going from male to female, you're going to need to change how you eat in terms of, your calories. I think both genders need to be aware of their bone health.
Mhm.
of eating for bone health, because that can be a big issue with hormones and just females going to males really need to be aware of that too. I mean, because they still have the especially if they're a white woman, they still have that propensity toward osteoporosis.
Mhm.
And I haven't done enough. I haven't looked at the literature enough to know how much that changes if they're going, if they're using the male hormones. But I think that would be a super interesting topic.
Yes, that's why nutrition is so relevant, because it really gets you when you're older if you're not doing it right. So, continual education credits. You mentioned that you had to have the 50 CPUs for the DTR credential.
Yeah,
What have you been doing for those CPUs, or do you
I've
plan
done
to
a
do?
lot of webinars. I think people, the webinars are very accessible, and the academy emails and different groups email you something, and you think, oh yeah, maybe I'd like to do that one. The first one I did, I remember right after I was credentialed, was from the North American, is it the Meat Institute,
Okay.
talking about beef and protein and aging. And um, Christine Rosenblum. Do you know her name? She's
No.
written food. She's a pretty prominent dietitian, and she's one of the co-authors of a book I recently read called Food and Fitness After 50.
Oh.
And she was on the webinar, and I thought, oh, I'd like to hear her, and I'd like to hear her perspective on red meat. And that study on red meat had just come out about it being fine for you to eat as much red meat as you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
This is
did, that was one of the first
mind-blowing.
ones.
It's mind-blowing
Yes, yes.
information. This is a great segue into what resources would you recommend for DTRs to look into and follow. The things you've listed already, I want to look into. So can you give us an idea of what to look for, resources that you use?
Well, I got Erica's name from, well, I'd seen her because I'd seen her things on Healthline,
Okay.
because a lot of us look at Healthline.
Mm-hmm.
As well as Medical News Today is one that people may not look at as much, which is a great resource, and has very good writers and very good information. It's a little more in-depth sometimes than Healthline.
Okay.
I liked it a lot. And I will tell you that as I was studying for the DTR, and just generally when I was taking my nutrition courses, I really enjoyed Oregon State University has the Linus Pauling.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever gone to that website?
Yeah, I use it all the time. Mm-hmm.
It's terrific. I love it. That if you write a lot about nutrition and you want to make tables, I would say use Food Data Central from the USDA.
Mm-hmm.
It does require a little math,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to figure out the portions depending on what you're writing about. But it gives you in-depth nutrient breakdown, and they even have resources for phytochemicals in foods, which I'm very interested in, and really it's helpful with functional information.
Mm-hmm. So before we close out, is there anything you want to add or talk about before we close out the interview?
I do want you all, if I put this, I'm gonna put this little download, give you this download for this book. I do feel like right now I'm real interested in anti-inflammatory foods. And I think that's been a focus for a long time for people in functional nutrition, like Dr. Weil, and but I do feel that's becoming very important today. And so I guess I wanted to add that, and I'm going to put that little salad book for people if they want to download it and start eating more salads in the new year.
Freebie for the audience. Oh my gosh, this is great. What an awesome interview. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Make sure you check out Jani's blog. That link is down below. Also, that free resources for the salads and the resources that she's talking about. To find her blog, the link is down below again, and also on our website, NDTR Spotlight. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, and then I forgot, Jani, if they wanted to get in contact with you directly, how do they do it?
Oh, well, you can do my Instagram. You can do, you can message me on Instagram at Jani, Jani Food Hall, FOODHALL, or they can contact me via my blog, Food Hall by Jani, and they can also email me, Jani, Jani, at jani-foodhall.org. And I'll give you all those, and I'll give you a phone number too, Marie, if people want to reach me. And thank you so much. This has been delightful.
This has been so informative for me. So I hope it was also informative to you, the audience. And if it was, leave a comment down below. Thanks again for watching.